All right, well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to PPA 500. And also for, I believe, most people, welcome to the NPA program, because I believe this is probably the first class you have taken here in the NPA program since this is our first day of fall semester. So welcome to both the class as well as to the NPA program. My name is Dr. Powell, and obviously I'll be your instructor for this course and perhaps even some other courses in your future time in the program. I will tell you up front, in case you're not aware, but you probably should be because you probably got the little notice whenever you logged in. This session and all other sessions will be recorded. And so what I will do is I'll record every session, and then I will place those sessions onto, or I'll link to those sessions on our Canvas site so that throughout the week, if you need to, you can go back and you can review the information. Or for some reason you're not able to attend on a particular Tuesday. I know that some folks work in cities with city councils, and city councils kind of enjoy having city council meetings oftentimes on Tuesday nights. And so if for some work related reason you're not able to be with us, you can always go and then catch up on the material by watching the recording. Since we are recording each one of these sessions, the university does provide you with some privacy considerations. One of those privacy considerations is that you are not required to use your camera. So there's no requirement for that. The way in which the university usually handles it is if all sections of a course in a given semester are only offered in an online variety, then you are not required to use your camera. If, however, for future courses, if you select a online course, a Zoom-based course, but there's another section that's being offered on campus, so you have the option to take a class section on campus, then the instructor can require cameras. But since both of our sections of 500 this semester as a program are both online, then you don't really have the option. And so therefore you do not need to use your camera. So I leave that completely up to you. Also, a second privacy consideration the university affords to you, because we are recording these sessions, is that you do not need to use your full name in the Zoom session. So if you would like, you can just use your first name. You don't have to include your last name because, again, it's all being recorded. Typically, what I do with my sessions is I record them to the cloud, and then once they're done converting, I then upload them to YouTube and then provide a YouTube link to you on the Canvas site so you can go and review the session. So don't have to use a camera, and you don't have to use your entire name in our Zoom sessions. So just thought I'd let you know that in advance as we get going for this evening and over the next 8 weeks. But again, welcome to PPA 500. This is your introductory course in the NPA program. My name is Dr. Powell, and I'll tell you a little bit about me, and then we'll spend the first part of class tonight going through the course syllabus, talking about what the course is all about, the types of assignments you'll be doing in the course, and then entertaining any questions you may have about the course and the syllabus. Once we get done with that, then we will do a bit of a refresher on some of the information that you received at your orientation with Dr. Butts. I don't know when that happened. That was last week, or but whenever you attended the orientation, we'll go through that information again very briefly tonight. I'll also talk to you a little bit about the mission of the program, some of the values that the program is predicated on, and then talk to you about those 5 universal required learning competencies that everyone will be exposed to, given the fact that this program is a NASPA accredited program. So tonight, our goal is just to do this introductory information. We won't get into any of our substantive information until next Tuesday. And then next Tuesday, we'll get into some of our foundational information in terms of American government and the role of public administration and public service in our system of American governance. But let me tell you a little bit about me, and then we'll get into some details on the course. This is my 23rd year, which I find really hard to believe, but it's true. It's my 23rd year here at Cal State Long Beach in Public Policy Administration. I arrived on campus in 2001. During my 23 years here, I served for 10 years as department chair, and I'm now in, gosh, I guess it's my 18th year as the director of the distance learning MPA program. So here at Long Beach, we not only have this program, which we oftentimes refer to as the state-supported program, but then we also have a distance learning program as well, which is self-support, and I serve as the director of that program. Before coming here to Long Beach, I taught at Florida Gulf Coast University down in Fort Myers, Florida. And then I started my academic career at Eastern Illinois University in their Department of Political Science. I taught the full-time faculty member there for 4 years. So that's who I am. I've been teaching this 500 course essentially since I got here to Long Beach. So for 23 years now, I've been teaching this course. I also teach intergovernmental relations, and we'll spend some time next week talking about federalism and intergovernmental relations. If you find any of those topics interesting, I teach the intergovernmental relations course in the summers as an elective course. And it's a course that's taught on an asynchronous basis. And so you don't have to attend any sessions. You just complete the modules over a 6-week period of time in summer session 1. So I do that course. I also on occasion teach the public budgeting course, very infrequently, usually only in the summers. I also teach organization theory. I teach research methods, and then obviously the 697 directed research course, which I'm sure you talked about in your orientation, and we will also talk about a little bit later on tonight. So that's me. We are a very large class this term. Typically, we usually have 3 sessions of PPA 500. When COVID hit, our enrollments went down a little bit, just like every other university across the nation. And so we went from 3 down to 2 sections of 500. Now our enrollments have bounced back to pretty much close to pre-COVID levels, and we're still at 2 sections instead of 3. And so while these courses typically have an enrollment cap of 15 students, I believe in this class we are at 21, and in my Monday night class, I believe we're at 23. So enough folks to fill up 3 sections, but we only have 2. So that's why we're a relatively large class, larger than we normally are for PPA 500. Should not be an issue. The difference between 15 students and 21 or 23 students is not that big of a difference from a pedagogical type of perspective. So shouldn't have a big impact upon us, but we are a relatively large class. One of the good things about being a larger class is when we get to our Canvas essays, you have more people to respond to in the Canvas essays. So oftentimes makes our discussion board a little bit more robust and a little fuller discussion than we would have if we had a much smaller course enrollment. So I will learn about you as we go through the course. You've probably already looked at the syllabus, so you know that one of the first things I'm asking you to do is to complete a very brief introductory posting on our Canvas site. That introductory posting is just you sharing some information, whatever information you're comfortable sharing about yourself, maybe what your undergraduate major was, where you went to school for your undergraduate degree, maybe some indication of why you're in the MPA program and how you want to use your degree to further your career. Just a paragraph or so, just telling us a little bit about you so we can all kind of get to know each other a little bit better. That introductory post is not graded. It's just a way in which we can kind of familiarize ourselves with each other. So I'll use those introductory posts to kind of learn who everyone is and kind of make those connections as we move throughout our next few weeks together. You are probably also aware that this is what we consider to be a first half hybrid course. And as a first half hybrid course, we only meet for the first half of the semester. Now, that doesn't mean that we remove information. This is not a truncated version of the 500 course. It is an accelerated version. So we just cover the information a little bit quicker than if we were doing this course over a 15-week full semester. I've been doing the 500 class like this since 2007, so 16 years now. And the material for this class really does fit very nicely into the parameters of an 8-week class. And so I think it fits better in an 8-week than it does in a 15-week variety. And so even though we only meet for the first half of the semester, we still have ample time to cover all the information we need to cover in this course. Since we are a first half hybrid course, it means that we are meeting here at 4 o'clock on Tuesdays via Zoom. You all are here, so you know how to access Zoom. So we've all got that under our belts at this point in time. But then we also will have some activities we're doing on Canvas, and those activities will be in the discussion board feature of Canvas. That is all done asynchronously. And you'll see as we go through the syllabus, you'll see that you have 5 graded Canvas essays. I post a prompt. You then go into the discussion board area, you respond to that prompt, and then you also respond to 2 of your classmates' postings. So essentially, for those 5 weeks, you will be having 3 posts that you'll be doing each week in Canvas. 1 response to my initial post, and then 2 responses to classmates and their postings. So that's kind of our asynchronous component. And then what we're doing here on Tuesday evenings in Zoom will constitute our synchronous component. So that's kind of what makes us a mixed online hybrid type of a course. So we will all be done and wrapped up in this course by October 10th. So October 10th will be technically our final session. We won't meet in Zoom on October 10th. I will just provide you with that time to finish up your final assessment. So you can kind of view that as kind of your final exam time. And then we're done. On October 10th, you're done with all of your assignments. I will grade everything. I will then get your final grades ready to post within about 48 hours, and then you can move onward and upward. We designed these first half hybrid courses to allow you the opportunity to essentially get 2 courses done in the time it would normally take you to do 1. So I don't know what the schedule looks like this semester because I don't put the schedule together anymore as chair, but I would assume there are some second half hybrids. And so the idea was that students can complete the first half hybrid and then be able to move directly into a second half hybrid and kind of get 2 courses done in the time it normally takes to do 1 course. We started that approach back in 2007. We started with 1 or 2 courses, and now we have expanded it to the vast majority of our core courses, as well as some of our elective courses. And so it's become by far the most popular format for students. We did a student survey my last year as chair, and that student survey showed us that the vast majority of students and faculty members preferred these first half or second half hybrid courses to entire 15-week semesters. So it's been working out very well for us. We just keep expanding it with each passing academic year. Let me go through the syllabus with you. I'm sure you've had a chance to look at it. It's been posted up on our Canvas site for some time. I have made a few changes and switched a few things around in the syllabus just to kind of make it work a little bit better with some of the quirks of this fall semester. So you probably had a chance to take a look at, but let me walk you through the syllabus and kind of show you all the different aspects of the course. And as I go through the syllabus, if you have any questions or any clarifications that are needed, you can participate in one of 2 ways. You can either use your microphone and ask the question through audio, or I also have text chat open. And so if you'd like to, you can always put your questions into text chat. And I'll be keeping an eye on text chat as we go through our session tonight, and we'll be answering any questions that are put in there. So it's completely up to you and whatever you're comfortable with. I don't have a participation element to the grading in this course, and so I don't require you to use your microphone, but if you're more comfortable with the microphone, feel free to use that. More comfortable typing the text chat, that's absolutely fine as well. But don't hesitate to ask questions or seek clarifications as we go through the material as necessary. So let me move a couple things around here on my screen so that I can move my cursor around. Okay. So let's go through the syllabus. Again, I said my name is Dr. Powell. You know our meeting times. You know how to access the meetings because you are here. Our meeting days, we essentially have technically 8 meeting days. But as I said, on October 10th, we're not going to have a Zoom session. You'll just have the time to work on your final assessment. So our Zoom sessions are tonight, then next Tuesday on the 29th, September 5th, September 12th, September 19th, September 26th, and October 3rd. I hope all those dates are correct. If you need to contact me, since I am teaching all my courses remotely this semester, I am going to be on campus very sparingly. I'm the vice chair of the College Faculty Council, which means I may be on campus on Fridays for those meetings. Otherwise, I'm conducting my office hours virtually. And so if you need to meet with me, please do send me an email and we can certainly set up a meeting as necessary. My official office hours I have listed here on the syllabus are Tuesdays from 2 to 4 before class. And again, just send me an email and we're happy to answer any questions you have. If you need to meet at a different time, send me an email and we can certainly set something else up. But everything will be done virtually in terms of office hours. A little bit about the course. This is your introductory course into the MPA program. So it is a survey-based course. There are obviously no prerequisites, no expectations entering into this course. In this course, we will cover many of the major theories of public policy administration. We'll talk about things like federalism and intergovernmental relations. We'll talk about theories of organizations. We'll talk about how you manage human resources, how you manage fiscal resources through budgeting. We'll talk about the role of public administrators in the making and implementation of public policies. We'll talk about accountability and ethics and what it means to be a public servant and some of the unique requirements here in the state of California for openness and transparency among public servants. We'll talk about the Brown Act and some of the Open Records Acts that we have here in the state of California. We will spend some time talking about the discipline of public administration. What is public administration and what makes it an academic discipline? And I hope that we'll have some robust discussions in future class sessions about whether or not public administration truly is a discipline or is it merely a subfield within the bigger field of political science. Since you are in an MPA program, it is really essential for you to develop a good working knowledge of what we mean by public administration and some of the somewhat unique ways in which we study phenomenon here in public administration, some of the approaches, methodologies, and theories that we rely upon. And we will spend a good bit of time, especially in the very first part of the semester, talking about American government and American political institutions. As we know, public administration occurs within a political environment. And so to be an effective administrator, you need to know how to navigate the complex relationships that underpin a democratic republic like the one that we have here in the United States. So we'll talk about the role of public agencies and public administrators within that context of the American Republic. We'll talk about the Constitution. We'll talk about what the Constitution means for doing public administration. We'll talk about the relationships, both horizontally as well as vertically, between the different institutions of American government and what those relationships then mean for public administration. Now, we made a change to this course about 5 or 6 years ago, where we started introducing these concepts of American government and political institutions. Prior to that, the 500 course was what I used to call a sampler plate for all the future courses that you will take in the MPA program. But we found it's more important in this course to really lay a strong foundation for understanding what public administration is and how public administration is done in our unique political culture and our unique system of American politics. And so that's why we have that as a very heavy focus, especially in the first part of our semester together. So that's the course objectives I have listed there for you. I have 4 of them. You can read through those on your own. Nature of the course, I've already said we are a first half hybrid course. We will meet beginning tonight, and then officially our course goes through October the 10th. We have our Zoom sessions on Tuesdays at 4 o'clock, as you all know. This is a survey-oriented course, and it's designed to provide a logical flow of information. So next week, when we get into our substantive information, we will start out with a discussion of the foundations of American government. We'll talk about the creation of the Articles of Confederation. We'll talk about the movement from the Articles of Confederation into the creation of the Constitution. We will go through the Constitution, each article and each amendment of the Constitution, with an eye on what those parts of the Constitution mean for our understanding of public service and public administration. So we'll do all those basics of American government beginning next week and probably then continuing into the following week. So a lot of that focus over the next week and a half or two will be on American government. The textbooks in the course, we have two. The main textbook is by Don Kettle, and that's Politics of the Administrative Process. You can use whatever edition of that you're able to get at a reasonable price. The editions, the content in the textbook really doesn't change a whole lot from edition to edition. The only real change is there's a little bit of updating, and when things occur that may be included in a newer version of the textbook, but really the bones of the textbook tend to be the same regardless of what edition you are using. I like using this book because it really does blend administration and American government together very well. And it really allows us to talk about public administration from the context of our American political system. Then the second book we have is the Classics of Public Administration. This is a book you may want to hold on to throughout your time in the program because you will use some of these articles in future courses. Specifically, when you get to a course like organization theory, a lot of these articles that we'll read in the classics textbook, you will then reread and use again in your organization theory course, and perhaps to a lesser degree in your policy analysis course as well. The Shaffert's textbook is really a collection of the classical seminal articles in the discipline of public administration. And I like to assign that book so that you have the opportunity to read these articles yourself. And so you can develop your own opinions, your own perspectives on these classical readings, rather than just having me tell you what the readings mean. And so I think it's important for you to have that direct exposure to a lot of those articles that really form the basis for the quote unquote discipline of public administration. Now, I do think it's important also to note to you that the way in which I look at the textbooks, especially the Kettle textbook, is that it's important that you do the Kettle readings, but I do not teach directly from Don Kettle's textbook. I think it's a great textbook. I think it presents the information in a very clear and straightforward fashion, but I also believe that you should not get all the information from the textbook, that there should be some value from you being here in our Zoom sessions on Tuesday afternoons. And so the way in which I look at it is if everything goes right in the course, yes, you will learn something from Don Kettle. Yes, you will learn something from each other. And hopefully you'll learn something from me as well. So those will be the three sources, hopefully, of information that you will acquire here in this course. So I do approach some topics a little differently than Don does. I present some topics that perhaps he doesn't present. I also don't emphasize all the topics that he emphasized in the textbook. So it is important that you're either here on Tuesdays, or if for some reason you're not able to be here, that you do view the recording each week to stay up to date on all the information. The midterm and final assessments that I construct will probably rely more heavily upon what we cover on Tuesdays in our Zoom sessions than perhaps the material from the textbook. So it is important that you are exposed to the material that we are covering on Tuesdays. So those are your textbooks that we'll be using this term. I know everyone's always concerned, and I was a graduate student, so I understand, always concerned about evaluation criteria. What types of assignments will you be doing? Why will you be doing those types of assignments? And then how will those assignments then be evaluated? So let's spend a few minutes talking about some of the assignments you'll do this term and They are listed right here on the syllabus. So we have what we call an initial skills self-assessment. And I don't know if Dr. Butts discussed this with you at the orientation, but in every section of 500, students will do this initial skills self-assessment. And this is regardless of who you have as your instructor. This is one of our assessment mechanisms that we have created to not only help us as a faculty assess your progress through the program, but also to afford you as a student the opportunity to engage in a self-assessment and self-reflection. So here in 500, you will complete this initial skills self-assessment. This initial skills self-assessment, as you can see, is worth 5 points. It's essentially graded on a credit, no credit basis. It's essentially you turn it in and you get the 5 points. It is meant to be an honest assessment of what you know about several skills that are at the heart of our MPA program. And to illustrate that a little bit better for you, let me scroll down at the end of the syllabus. We have the initial skills self-assessment appended. So here is the initial skills self-assessment, which hopefully you can see. Again, this is something that we put in place back in fall of 2007 as part of an assessment of student learning outcome system that I created back the first time I was chair. And so it's been around for 16 years now and still going strong. The initial skills self-assessment essentially consists of 3 parts. The first part, in part 1, you will be doing an ordinal ranking. Let's scroll down to that. Part 1, you'll be doing an ordinal ranking of how much you think you already know in each of these different skill areas. Ranking your knowledge based upon a very simple ordinal scale of 1 to 5. 1 indicating that you know nothing about this topic, 5 indicating that you feel you know a great deal about this topic. And so, for instance, budgeting and financial management. How much do you feel you know about budgeting and financial management in the public sector? If you have never worked with a budget before and the only budgeting you've ever done is balancing a personal checkbook, then you're probably going to be closer to the one end of the spectrum. However, we've had some folks come into this program with an extensive knowledge of public budgeting. I had one student in the distance learning program who worked for Metro, and he was in charge of managing the capital budget, at least a very large portion of the capital budget for Metro, $500 million a year in capital projects. He was a 5 because he certainly did that as part of his normal duties. So how much you know about budgeting and financial management, how much you feel you know about decision-making, ethics, oral communications, organization behavior, human resource management, policy analysis, problem solving, research and statistics, teamwork, written communications. So this is a really simple thing. In part 1, you're just selecting an ordinal ranking for each one of those categories based upon how much you feel you know about those skills. Then in part 2, we're asking for a very brief description of your experience or skills in the areas of budgeting and finance, human resource management, organization theory, policy analysis, and research methods. Those 5 areas are selected because they reflect the 5 main areas of focus in our core curriculum. So PPA 525, 577, 660, 670, and 696. Those represent those 5 areas of budgeting, HR, org theory, policy, and research methods. So here you can just give me a really brief sentence or two telling me what your experience is in those areas. If you have no experience in those areas, you can just simply say that. You can say, I have no experience in public budgeting and finance, and that's a completely valid and acceptable answer. This is just meant to be an honest assessment of where you are as you enter the MPA program. And then part 3, we're asking you to please discuss your reasons for pursuing the MPA degree and what specific skills you hope to acquire in the MPA program. So why are you here and what specific things do you want to get out of your time in the MPA program? Again, this can be relatively brief. This can be a paragraph or 2. This is more for your purposes so that when you get to the end of the program and you redo this in your final skills self-assessment in PPA 697, you can really compare what you were hoping to get out of the program with what you actually got out of the program at its conclusion. So those are the three parts of this initial skills self-assessment. Again, it is not graded, it's just credit, no credit. So you turn it in, you get the 5 points. So there are no right answers, no wrong answers. It's just an honest assessment of where you are as you are entering the program. So that's our initial skills self-assessment. Leah, go ahead.
Hi. Shrey Roth and I are actually in the Masters in Public Health program, Health Sciences. Do you still want us to fill this out? Or take this as an elective?
Yeah, you can still fill it out in terms of just kind of a self-assessment for you, and I'll
Okay.
still give credit on. But yeah, I would like you to still do it even if you're not in the MPA program.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks.
Sure. Now, the assignment you won't have to do is the next one, and that's the draft advancement to candidacy form. So if you are not in the MPA program, you do not have to do a draft advancement to candidacy. All you need to do is just send me an email and just say, I am not enrolled in the MPA program, and then I'll go ahead and award you the 5 points for the draft advancement form. So there's no reason for you to do the draft advancement form if you're not in the MPA program. So that one you get to skip. But do just send me an email and just remind me so I can go ahead and award those 5 points. Every program has a different way in which they do their advancement to candidacy. And so if you are in another program, you'll have a different approach and different form that you'll use than if you're in the MPA program. But for MPA students, the next assignment you'll be doing is this draft advancement to candidacy form. And this is probably something that Dr. Butts spoke to you about at the orientation session. All graduate students need to complete an advancement to candidacy form before they graduate. And the advancement to candidacy form is essentially a listing of all the courses that you plan to take in your program. And so let me go ahead and I don't know if Dr. Butts shared the form with you, but let me go ahead and stop our share here. And let me share out, hopefully it's there, the advancement to candidacy form. Okay, it's loading, and hopefully you should be able to see draft advancement to candidacy form for the Masters of Public Administration degree program. So this is the advancement form that everyone needs to complete, and it essentially is a contract between you and the university. So on this form, this is where you tell the university, here are the courses that I plan to take. And then when you get to the end of the program, the university will go back and look at what courses you took and make sure you took all the courses you said you were going to take on your advancement to candidacy form. So the advancement form is essentially a planning tool where you put together your academic plan moving forward through the program. So if you are in the MPA program, everyone will fill out a draft form in this course. And what I have found in 500 is it's useful for you to have the opportunity to put together a draft advancement form. I can take a look at that draft advancement form and provide you some feedback in terms of your course sequencing, perhaps some of the electives that you want to take, give you that feedback so that once you have finished this course and you have 6 units completed in the program, you can then officially advance to candidacy. So this is the way, a step toward officially advancing to candidacy once this class is over. So this draft advancement form you are sharing with me, I'm providing you feedback, and then you will officially advance candidacy once you have completed 6 units in the MPA program. So in this form, it's very simple. Your basic information up on the top, as you can see. The term you admitted, which for most people is fall 2023. Your advancement term, no one can advance in the semester in which they are admitted. And so no one will be able to advance this fall, regardless of how many courses you're taking. So your advancement term will have to be spring 2024. That's going to be the soonest that you can advance. You can only advance to candidacy after you have completed 6 units in the program and you have a cumulative grade point average of at least 3.0. So spring 2024 will be the first time that you can advance, officially advance. You'll see some of the requirements for advancement to candidacy. And again, if Dr. Butts went through this with you at the orientation, I apologize for redundancy, but redundancy sometimes is good because it really does get everyone on the same page in terms of administratively what you have to do to get through the program. So one of the requirements for advancing candidacy is the completion of the graduate writing assessment requirement. That was suspended throughout the COVID pandemic. My understanding is the university is now re-implementing that. Essentially, if you have an undergraduate degree from a regionally accredited university, chances are you have already met your graduate writing assessment requirement. You can check whether or not you met your graduate writing assessment requirement by looking at your MyCSULB. You can look either at your academic progress or you can look at your transcript to see whether or not the university has cleared your GWAR. If your GWAR has not been cleared for whatever reason, you can talk to our graduate advisor or Dr. Butts. Dr. Butts is the chair of the program. And then we also have a graduate advisor. Our new graduate advisor for this semester is Dr. Tina Zhao. She's taking over the graduate advising duties. And so if you have any question about whether or not your GWAR has been met, you can talk to either Dr. Butts or Dr. Zhao. You have to have a minimum GPA of 3.0 in order to officially advance. Now, on this draft form, you don't have a grade point average yet, so just leave that one blank. You don't have to worry about that. Successful completion of 6 units in the MPA program. I don't think anyone has that done yet this semester. You probably won't have that done until spring. And then completion of the orientation requirement. If you attended the orientation with Dr. Butts, you can put the date of that orientation there. If you did not have a chance to attend the orientation, we will cover that orientation information briefly tonight, so you can use August 22nd as your date of completing the orientation if you weren't able to attend the actual orientation itself. I'm not so concerned about all that because it's just a draft form. What I'm really concerned about is I'm really going to look at your course sequencing. So you see on the form, you've got all of your required courses. What I would like to see is for you to say what semester and what year you plan on taking these courses. Now, obviously, you don't have a grade in them yet, so don't worry about that column, but what semester and year do you plan on taking your courses? Now, an important requirement of the program that you probably heard at orientation is that you cannot register for PPA 697 directed research, which is your culminating activity course. You cannot register for that until you've completed all of your other core courses. So one of the things to be mindful of in filling out this draft form is when you fill out your semester and year, make sure that the semester and year for all of your core courses predate the semester and year you plan on taking 697. You cannot have 697 in the same semester in which you're taking any of your core courses. So let's be mindful of that as you're filling out the semester and year in the draft advancement. And then you'll list 5 courses that you plan on taking as electives. Now, electives can be taken in any order. You don't have to wait until you finish your course to take your electives. You can take your electives anytime you want throughout the program. We have several electives that are offered within our department. If you don't find any electives you're interested in our department, it is possible to take some electives outside the department. If you're taking an elective outside the department, the elective must be at the graduate level. It must be 500 or above. And you must get the approval of either Dr. Butts as the chair or Dr. Zhao as the graduate advisor. So you need to go and talk to, before you get around to doing your electives and registering for them, you have to talk to either Dr. Butts or Dr. Zhao, get their approval before you'll be able to register for those courses. And the reason for that is twofold. One reason is that some departments across campus are in what we call impacted status, which means that if they're impacted, they do not accept anyone from outside of their program into their courses. And so there are some programs where you cannot take electives in their program unless you're enrolled in that program. Dr. Butts and Dr. Zhao have a good idea of what those departments are. Secondly, as an accredited program, we need to demonstrate to our accrediting body that we have control and governance over the instruction provided in the MPA program. And so that means that we need to approve any courses you're taking from faculty in other departments to make sure that they meet the requirements of the MPA degree. But you'll need to list 5 electives and when you plan on taking those electives here on the draft advancement form. Then, as you probably heard at the orientation session, there is an internship requirement in the MPA program for students who do not have at least 1 year of professional administrative experience. So if you do not have at least 1 year of professional administrative experience, then you want to talk to, again, Dr. Butts or Dr. Zhao in the future about signing up for an internship. They can help you locate internships. They can help you identify the organizations in the local community that have articulation agreements signed with the university, and they can help facilitate your ability to locate an internship. However, if you have at least 1 year of administrative experience, then all you have to do is just check the waiver box and then say where you are employed, and then you will get the waiver from the internship requirement. The internship is a 3-unit requirement that is in addition to the 39 units required for graduation. So if you are unable to waive the internship and you have to do an internship, you'll be completing 42 units instead of 39 units. However, again, you'll need to talk to Dr. Butts or Dr. Zhao if you do not have the requisite experience to get a waiver. I know the vast majority of people in our program get waivers. I think any given year we may have 1 or 2 folks who are doing internships, but the vast majority of people have some type of experience that will qualify for a waiver from the internship. But at this point on the draft form, just check one of those boxes, either waiver or that you anticipate having to do the PPA 585 internship. And that's it. Again, this is a draft form. You don't have to get any signatures on it. All you need to do is just submit it to the assigned Dropbox in our Canvas site. I will review it. I will look at those, the sequencing of your courses, provide you some feedback on that, so that once you are done with this semester and you've completed 6 units, you will then be able to actually officially advance to candidacy. So that's your draft advancement form. Again, it's only for people who are currently enrolled in the MPA program. If you're not enrolled in the program, just shoot me an email and tell me that, and we'll certainly be able to waive that requirement. Any initial questions on either the initial skills self-assessment or the draft advancement to candidacy form? Then, moving right along, let me share out our syllabus again, and we'll keep rolling through the syllabus. So those are 2, again, they're only 5-point assignments. Again, credit, no credit. But then you also have these 2 assessments, a midterm assessment and a final assessment. So let me talk to you a bit about what those assessments are, because they are each worth 100 points. So it's a pretty substantial portion of your grade. Each of the assessments, the midterm and the final assessment, are both scenario based. And so what they'll consist of is they'll each consist of 5 scenarios. So I'll provide you with 5 very brief, realistic public sector scenarios. And then there'll be 2 questions related to each of those scenarios. So 5 scenarios and a grand total of 10 questions. What you'll be asked to do is you'll be asked to use the information from the course in order to answer those questions and apply that information appropriately to those scenarios. Now, the scenarios are relatively brief because I don't want to inundate you with a lot of superfluous information, but I give you enough information that you need in order to be able to apply the information appropriately to answer those questions. It's a good question from Nadine in the text chat. How do we email the self-assessment? There is a Dropbox on campus, and so you can submit it directly through the Dropbox. There's also a Dropbox for the draft advancement form, and there are also Dropboxes for the midterm as well as the final assessment. So every assignment will be submitted electronically through the Dropboxes in Canvas. So on these assessments, then, there are no right or wrong answers. The way in which I will evaluate your answers will be based upon how well you use the information and how appropriate your answers are for that given scenario. So there's no best answer. So you're not looking for the best answer. You're looking for the most appropriate answer. So if I give you a scenario about, and there's one scenario I like to use a lot about, for accountability and ethics, where we have, you are in the situation of being a new lobbyist for a lobby firm, and you're sent to Capitol Hill to lobby for this particular piece of legislation. And you sit down with a member of the House of Representatives, and that member says that they have a vested interest in this legislation because it will have an impact upon their property values. And then the question will be, is that ethical? Why or why not? Are there any of the provisions of the ASPA Code of Ethics that we will cover when we talk about accountability? Any of those principles in the ASPA Code of Ethics that were violated, and if so, which ones? So again, it's kind of that kind of idea where you can take the information and then appropriately apply it to that scenario that I have provided. Now, these midterm and these final assessments we're not doing in class. They are not timed assignments, so you don't have to worry about that. What I will do is at least 2 weeks before their due dates, I will then make them available on our Canvas site, and you'll then have 2 weeks to work on these assessments. As you're working on the assessments, you can use any information that you have at your access. You can use the information from our Tuesday night sessions. You can use information from the textbook. If you want to look at it as being an open note assessment, you can look at it as an open note assessment. So it's not information you have to memorize or anything like that. And again, you'll have 2 weeks to do these assessments. I think that's relatively realistic for what we do in the public sector. It's relatively rare where we're going to have to sit down and memorize information and then regurgitate that information like you would do in a traditional examination. That's why these are assessments rather than exams. It gives you some time to digest the material and then apply the material appropriately to those scenarios. So those are the two assessments, a midterm assessment and a final assessment. Again, they'll open up on Canvas at least 2 weeks before their due date. And then we have our Canvas essays. And there are 5 of those graded Canvas essays, each one worth 30 points. Again, you'll have a response to my initial prompt, which is worth 20 points. And then each of your responses to classmates will be worth 5 points each. A question from Crystal in text chat: is there a required number of textbook article references for the midterm and the final? No. And actually, you can decide what information you want to use. If you can answer the questions appropriately, just using the information from the textbook and just using the information from our Tuesday evening sessions, that's absolutely acceptable. You don't have to go out there and do a lot of external research in order to answer these questions. But if you do external research, then obviously you will want to cite the research that you are using. But it's really not meant to be a research type of endeavor. It's meant more to be an assessment type of device. And so you can probably answer most of the questions without doing much, if any, outside research. But it is a very important point. And then, if you are using any information from outside, you do need to make sure that you cite that. I'm sure, as Dr. Butts talked about, he probably told you that we use APA 7th edition here in this program. We adopted APA several years ago. And so I'll say technically every course in the program should be using APA format. You may run into an instructor who doesn't like APA down the road, but for the most part, everyone should be using APA 7. So it's a good idea to get a copy of the APA 7th manual and just have that with you, because in future courses, even though we're not doing a lot of research papers per se in this course, you will be doing a lot of research in future courses. And so it's really important that you have that APA manual with you. Also, what we will do in this class on September 12th, if I have my dates correct, Kelly Janicek, who is a librarian with the University Library, who is dedicated to the fields of public administration and political science, she will be coming into our Zoom session, and she will be giving you an introduction to the University Library, specifically how to do public administration related research at the library using the electronic databases. And as part of her presentation, the second half of her presentation will then focus on APA format. And she'll take you through APA format, and she'll show you different examples of how you cite journal articles versus books versus electronic resources correctly in APA 7. And so you'll get that instruction on September 12th as well. That will then be very useful for you moving forward in some of your future courses. But we're not looking at these as research assignments. They're more assessments of what you have learned in the materials provided with the course. But again, for these Canvas essays, then we have 5 graded Canvas essays. As I said, you'll be doing 3 posts for each one of these essays, an initial post to my prompt, and then responses to 2 classmates, 20 points for your initial response to my prompt, and then 5 points for each of your responses to classmates. And let me go ahead and scroll down. You've probably already seen it, but since it's germane for what we're talking about now, let's scroll on down and take a look at these Canvas essays. So you got 5 of them. And as I say here, move this out of my way, Canvas essays are not extemporaneous musings provided in response to my questions and or cases. They are graded essays that should reflect a good amount of effort and should adhere to scholarly norms. I expect that all essays will be on topic and that all information that you normally cite in a scholarly paper will be cited in your posting as well. So if you need to use outside resources to create your Canvas essay, you need to cite those outside resources, but that's not necessarily required. Again, I'm more interested in you being able to take the information you've learned in class and then apply it to these situations in the Canvas essays. All students must respond to at least 2 classmates per week as well. Initial post, as I said, is worth 20 points. Each response post worth 5 points. So how in depth should these posts be? Your initial post, your initial response to my prompt, you can usually do a good job on that in a couple of paragraphs. They don't have to be too extensive. You don't have to write a master's thesis or a dissertation. Usually a couple paragraphs will be enough to suffice for that initial post. Then for your responses to classmates, no more than a paragraph would be required. So just a paragraph where you're responding to your classmates' post. Perhaps your classmate talked about something that you have experience with in your job, and so you're going to talk about how you dealt with this issue in your job. Perhaps it's a topic that you're interested in, maybe a topic you did a paper on in your undergraduate, and so you've got some additional information. So looking for you in those response posts to, number one, be professional and be courteous, be supportive, and provide some insight to your classmates in a very professional and supportive manner. But 1 paragraph for each of your responses to classmates, 2 paragraphs should be sufficient then for your initial post. So they are very much parsimonious in nature. And one thing you'll find in this program is as you go through it, we tend to really value parsimony in this program, being as concise as you can be, saying what you need to say in as few words as you can say it. As you know, in public administration, we have very limited time. And so therefore, we oftentimes communicate in memos and we oftentimes communicate in very short writings. We really don't have the time and the wherewithal to write multiple pages. Ronald Reagan always said he didn't want to review any memo that was more than 1 page in length. Put the bullet points on 1 page so he understands it very, very quickly and very easily. That was a hard lesson for me to learn because one of my undergraduate majors was history. And if any of you majored in history, historians like to write a lot. And so the first paper I turned in my doctoral program, I was so proud of it. It was a 70 or 80 page paper. I was so proud of it. I went to, it wasn't Kinko's at that time, but I went to the publication office and had it bound and turned it into my instructor. And the thing I just ended up getting red all over it, saying not necessary, not necessary, not necessary, and essentially told this 70-page paper could have been distilled into 10 or 15 pages, because that's parsimony, and that's what we do in public administration. So try and be as parsimonious as you can, not just in your Canvas essays, but also in your responses to the scenarios on the midterm and the final assessments. Our focus in this class, again, is not so much on research, even though you'll learn research skills with Kelly Janicek. Our focus is much more on application, taking the information and applying it in practical situations. And I think that's what really reflects what we do in public administration much better than writing lengthy research papers. And so that's why that's not the focus of this course. So to recap, you have initial skill self-assessment worth 5 points, draft advancement to candidacy form worth 5 points, midterm assessment worth 100 points, final assessment worth 100 points, and then 5 Canvas essays with your initial post and your responses worth 30 points each, 5 of them for a total of 150 points on those Canvas essays. So a grand total of 360 points for our term together. Here at Long Beach, if you didn't go here undergrad, you should know that we do not use pluses and minuses. We don't have a plus and minus grading system. We just use your basic A, B, C, D, F. So it's 90, 80, 70, 60%, your old standby. I like pluses and minuses. I wish we had pluses and minuses. In my time here at Long Beach, we've had 3 campus-wide votes on adopting a plus-minus system. Every time we have a vote, faculty vote very much in favor of pluses and minuses. Students vote against pluses and minuses. There are more students than there are faculty, and so pluses and minuses go down to defeat. And so in my 23 years, we are still not using a plus-minus system. That presents some challenges at the graduate level, because at the graduate level, we tend to have some grade compression, in that the normal expectation is that graduate students will fall somewhere in the A and the B range. And so without pluses and minuses, we really can't distinguish between someone who finishes the semester with a 90% and someone who finishes the semester with a 98%, which is kind of unfortunate, but that's just kind of the nature of how we do things here. It is important to note that you can get a C in a course, and that course will still count towards your graduation requirements. So you're allowed to get a C in a course. It just means you have to balance that C with an A in another course, because you need to maintain a cumulative grade point average of 3.0. So you can always balance a C with another A. Ds, however, do not count. So if you happen to get a D in a course, that course, if it's a core course, will then need to be retaken. If it's an elective course, you'll have to take another elective, because that course will not count towards your graduation requirements. I do tend to have a 1 percentage point flexibility rule. And so if you turn everything in on time and you give what I like to call the old graduate school try, you really, you put in a good effort. If you come in at the end of the semester and you're at 89%, I will give you the boost of 1 point up to 90%. But to get that 1 percentage point flexibility, it means you have to turn everything in on time and really be an active member of the class. I've got some grading rubrics there for your assessments as well as for your Canvas essays. I'll let you read through those on your own. I think we've always kind of talked about what my expectations are, so you can look at those rubrics in your spare time. Course schedule. So what are we going to talk about and when are we talking about it? Tonight, obviously, we're just doing course introduction, review of the course, review of the program basics. Look at the syllabus. I've got program introduction slides that we'll look at tonight. And I also have some slides on mission and values of the program as well. Your assignment that you should be working on then to turn in by next week is your introduction post. Again, that's just 1 paragraph sharing whatever information you're comfortable sharing. It is ungraded, and it's just meant to allow us to get to know each other a little bit better early on in the course. Next week, we'll get into our substantive information. And so we'll really get into these foundations of American democracy. We will talk about the Articles of Confederation. We will talk about the Constitution, some of our founding documents such as some of the Federalist Papers. And so the 3 that I've assigned here for you, Federalist Paper number 10, 39, and 51. Those Federalist Papers, along with the Constitution and the Articles of Confederation, those you can all find on our Canvas site. So if you go into that module, you'll see there are links there that will then take you to copies of the Constitution, the Articles, and those Federalist Papers that you can then read for next week. So next week, we will talk primarily about the foundations of American government. We probably will not be able to wrap all that up next week, and so we may have to extend that information then into week 3. So we'll finish up foundations of American government in week 3, and then we'll get into accountability and ethics. We will talk about the American Society for Public Administration Code of Ethics. We'll talk about the meaning of public service. We'll talk about some of the specific requirements here in California for transparency and openness. We'll talk about some of the difficulties in holding people accountable for what they are doing in public service. You'll see your readings there. You have chapter 1 in Kettle, and then you also have the article in the Shaffer's text by Moore. Assignment, then you have your Canvas essay number 1 that will be coming due and your initial skills self-assessment. Week number 4, if we need to finish off accountability, we will, but we'll devote most of that session to Kelly Janicek. And she'll come in and do your library tutorial. She'll then also talk to you about citing things in APA format. People usually find that to be one of the most useful sessions that they have throughout their entire time in the program. So it really sets you up well to do the type of research you'll need to do in your future courses in the program. Canvas essay number 2 will then end up coming due and your draft advancement to candidacy form. Then in week number 5, we'll get into the scope of government. We'll talk about the size and scope. We'll talk about differences between public and private sector organizations. One of the classic articles you have to read is the Graham Allison article, which is one of my favorite articles in all public administration literature, where Allison talks about some of the similarities and differences between public and private sector organizations. Canvas essay number 3 due, and then the week after that, you'll then have your midterm assessment due on September 24th. So since your midterm assessment will be due on September 24th, I will make it available to you no later than September 10th. So I will open it up for you on September 10th. Week number 6, administrative structure and theory, we'll really get into a discussion of what is public administration. We'll talk about the discipline of public administration, some of the unique aspects and some of the not so unique aspects of how we study public organizations. We'll go through the development of the organization theory literature, which will really prepare you then well for your PPA 660 org theory course. We'll talk about how our approaches to studying organizations have changed over the past 150 years, and they can see your associated readings then for that week. And then if time remains that week, we'll also then get into public policy analysis, foreshadowing some of the information for your PPA 670 course. We'll talk about decision-making models, how we make decisions in the public sector, and then we'll talk about how we make effective organizations. How do we measure effectiveness, and then how do we promote effectiveness in the public sector? And then Canvas essay number 4 will then be coming due. Then in week number 7, we will talk about administrative reform and civil service. We'll talk about how public employment has changed after post-Constitution. We'll talk about different eras of public employment. We'll talk about the influence of public employee unions on how we manage human resources. So essentially, we're talking about managing human resources that week. And hopefully at the end of that week, we'll then also have time to talk about managing fiscal resources. That will be our budgeting and finance information. Canvas essay number 5 will then be due. And we get all that then done by that date. Then in week 8, October 10th, we'll just reserve that for time for you to complete your final assessment. And if everything goes well, we will not have a Zoom session on October 10th. You'll just be able to work on your final assessment. So that's what we're covering and when we are covering the information. You'll see you've got your due dates there. The initial skills self-assessment due on September 11th. Draft advancement to candidacy form due on September 18th. Your midterm assessment due on September 24th. And then your final assessment due on October 10th. And for all these due dates, whenever they say they're due by this date, I mean, they're due by midnight on that date. They're due by 11:59 and 59 seconds p.m. on September 11th, and September 18th, and September 24th, and October 10th. So you have the entire day on those days to finish up the assignment. So they're due by 11:59 p.m. on those dates. I've listed for you all of our Zoom sessions that we have scheduled. So if everything goes well in according to plan, we will have 7 live Zoom sessions this semester, including tonight. And then your due dates for your Canvas essays and responses. The introductory one that's not graded is due on October 28th. And then you can see the due dates for each of your next Canvas essays, numbers 1 through 5. I've also listed in the syllabus for you the actual discussion board essay prompts that you'll be responding to. And so you kind of get an idea of what they look like. The first graded discussion board prompt, discussion board number 1. I know I say here most responses are 3 to 4 paragraphs. Typically 2 paragraphs recently has been enough to get the job done. I'm not going to stop reading after 2 paragraphs. And so if it takes you more than 2 paragraphs, that's absolutely fine. But typically 2 paragraphs is usually going to be enough. In Federalist number 10, Madison cautioned us against the negative effects of factions. We will read Federalist number 10 in preparation for next week. Do you believe that America is more factionalized and divided than in the past? Provide examples to support your position. What can be done to control the effects of factions more effectively? Please respond to 2 classmates. Then we have discussion board number 2. Discussion board number 2, you will be selecting 3 of the principles in the American Society for Public Administration Code of Conduct. We will cover the ASPA Code of Conduct in class, and I'll take you through all those principles. So I'm asking you here, just select 3 of those that are most challenging for your position and your organization. Just move that up again. Explain why these principles are challenging in your organization, then please respond to 2 classmates. So that's our accountability and ethics discussion post. Number 3, consider Graham Allison's argument regarding the similarities and differences between public and private sector management. Using your organization as an example, highlight 2 ways in which your organization differs from a private organization. Then highlight 2 ways in which your organization is similar and 2 ways in which your organization is different. So 2 similarities and then 2 differences between your public organization and a corollary private organization. If you're working in the private sector, I know some people in our program are in the private sector, just reverse the logic. Compare your private organization to a public organization, 2 similarities and 2 differences. If you're in a nonprofit organization, then you'll be acting just like you're in a public organization, comparing your organization to a private sector organization. So this, again, gets us at Graham Allison and some of his differences between different types of organizations across sectors. Then we have discussion board number 4. This one gets at the issue of public administration as a discipline. For many years, there's been an ongoing debate whether or not public administration is actually a discipline or merely a subfield within political science. Take a position on whether or not public administration is a discipline and explain why you feel is either a discipline or is not a discipline. And please respond to 2 classmates. And then your 5th and final graded discussion board will look at public policy. Using the models of decision-making we covered in class, select 1 public policy that you are familiar with and discuss which decision-making model was used in the development of that policy. Are there other decision-making models that better characterize the policy process? In class, we will talk about 4 different decision-making models: rational, comprehensive, incrementalism, mixed scanning, and garbage can model decision-making. You'll essentially be selecting from those 4 models, select 1 model that best reflects the creation of the policy that you are writing about. So let's give you a little foreshadowing of those are what your Canvas essay will look like. And again, you'll be giving me a response to that, and then you'll be responding to 2 of your classmates each week. Okay. Late assignments, my late assignment policy is that any assignment that is late will get a 10% penalty per 24 hours that the assignment is late. Now, I do understand that life has a tendency to intervene. And so if life does intervene and you're not able to get an assignment done on time, just reach out to me, send me an email, let me know that in advance, and then we can always make provisions to try and avoid that late penalty. So as long as you communicate with me, tell me what's going on, we can usually avoid the late penalty. How you'll be delivering the assignments, I have drop boxes established in our Canvas site, and so you'll be submitting them all in the designated drop boxes. That's for your assessments. That's also for your draft advancement form, as well as your initial skill self-assessment. All Canvas essays will then be completed through the Canvas discussion board. And again, I'll show you our Canvas site in just a second and make sure everyone knows how to navigate everything they need to navigate. This is an important one, policies on withdrawals. Now, people very rarely withdraw from this class because it is the first course in the program, and so you kind of need to finish this course fall semester. But if for some reason you do need to withdraw from the course, you'll need to go through the normal withdrawal process. I do not administrative withdraw people, And so if you just stop turning in assignments, I'm not going to withdraw you from the class. But if you do that and we get to the end of the semester together and I don't have a basis for assigning a grade, I would be forced to assign what's called a WU grade. And WU stands for unauthorized withdrawal. The problem with the WU grade is that for grade point average calculation purposes, it counts equivalent to an F. And WU grades are notoriously difficult to get off a transcript once they go onto a transcript. I know in my years as department chair, I fought this battle for several students trying to remove WUs from their transcript, and it's a battle that I usually lost. So it's good to try and keep WUs off your transcript so you don't have to worry about it. So if you do need to withdraw, go through the normal withdrawal process. Incompletes, I normally don't grant incompletes because they end up being very, very messy. If you get an incomplete, the incomplete is then good for 1 calendar year and allows you then 1 year to finish up the assignment to get a normal grade in the class. The problem that I have found is that people tend to forget about incompletes. And so 1 year goes by, the work doesn't get completed, and then the incomplete flips over to an F. Again, those are really hard to undo once they flip to the F grade. So I usually try to avoid incompletes. However, if there's a catastrophic situation that occurs that necessitates an incomplete, I just ask you talk to me as early as possible so we can make provisions. The university requires that at least 2/3 of coursework must be done before an incomplete can be granted. Students with disabilities, if there are any documented disabilities, document those through what's now called BMAC, the Bob Murphy Center, and they will then contact me with the reasonable accommodations. I do not take attendance, as I told you before, so it really is up to you to attend these Tuesday afternoon sessions. I do believe you're graduate students, you're professionals, you can make those decisions on your own, but I do not assign points based upon attendance. You can read through the technology requirements and all the required syllabus statements on your own. The only one that I will point you to is down here at the bottom. This is a new one this semester that just came out of Faculty Senate. And actually, it just came out of Faculty Senate last week. I wish it would have come out earlier before syllabi were created, but it came out last week. And so I've included it here on the syllabus. And that regard is in regard to the use of artificial intelligence. We all know what has happened with AI. We know ChatGPT and we know how useful those tools are. There is a concern across the university that people do not substitute AI work for their work. And so in this class, the policy we're going to use on artificial intelligence is that the use of generative AI tools is not permitted in this course for the following activities: impersonating you in classroom contexts, such as by using the generative AI tools to compose discussion board prompts assigned to you or content that you put in Zoom chat. May not be used for writing a draft of a writing assignment. It may not be used for writing entire sentences, paragraphs, or papers to complete class assignments. Sometimes it can be very useful as kind of a brainstorming type of tool where it allows you to brainstorm ideas. I think that's an acceptable use of AI at this point. It just should not be used to replace your work and your writing in the class. And so that's the policy on AI that we are using for this course. You should be aware, though, that Academic Senate, in their policy, they provided 3 different policies that instructors can choose from. And this is basically the middle ground policy. There's also a policy instructors can use where they allow students to use AI for multiple assignments in the class. There's also a very restricted policy that says you can't use AI whatsoever for anything. This is kind of the middle ground where you can use it to brainstorm ideas. You just can't use it to replace your writing and your academic process, which I think is a pretty reasonable way to address AI at this current point in time. So I know I've been talking for a lot and we've been going on for a while, but this is a syllabus and this is a course. Any questions about the syllabus or course requirements? Maria asked question, for office hours, do we log into the same Zoom link or is it a separate link? For office hours, if you need to talk to me, send me an email and let me know. And then I can create a Zoom link and then I can send you out that Zoom link. So it's kind of a personalized Zoom link just for you. Okay. Good question. Any other questions about the syllabus? Now, let me stop the share. And I know it's 5:15, so I do want to give you a break tonight, but let me go ahead and share out, if it's still alive and kicking, our Canvas site, which looks like I'm going to have to share my screen. So before I do that, though, let me check out the text chat. Let's see. Explain again how we check if we have the GUAR completed. It should either be on your unofficial transcript or there should be a on your drop-down menu, academic progress, and it should be able to tell you there if your GUAR has been completed. If you don't see it in the My CSUOB, send an email to Kathy Allen. And it's Kathy.Allen. I'll put that in text chat. Kathy.Allen at csuob.edu. If I can type, it would be helpful. Send an email to Kathy, and Kathy can double check for you and make sure if you've completed the GUAR requirements. So she's really good at that. Let's see, regarding APA formatting, is there a website? And yeah, Maria has provided the best website you can get for that, and that's OWL Purdue. That's a great website, and thank you for sharing that, Maria. It gives you specific examples, depending upon what type of source you're using, how you would cite that in APA 7. So it gives you an example for a journal article from a sole author. It gives you an example of a journal article from multiple authors. Gives you an example of books, electronic resources. So that is an excellent site to use. And again, Kelly Janicek will go over a lot of that information with you again on September the 12th. The textbooks are available at the bookstore, or you can get those online through Amazon or through the publisher if you can get them a little bit cheaper than what they have them at the bookstore. All the other readings outside the textbook, like the Articles of Confederation, the Constitution, those are all links that are provided within our Canvas site. And I'll show you those in just a second. Let's see, since we are MPA students and do not need to complete the advanced candidacy form, when's a good time to, you can just send me an email anytime and I can go ahead and waive that for you. So just remember to send it anytime and just to remind me and I'll go ahead and waive it. So anytime is fine. Let me share out my screen and go to, which I probably have already gotten logged out, but I have to log in again. Let's go to our Canvas site. Okay. Hopefully you can see the Canvas site. If you can't, please let me know, but I hope you can see it here. And this is the Canvas site in student view. So it's kind of what you see whenever you log in. I know most of you already logged into Canvas and looked around, but let me just take you on a real quick tour before we take our break. There's an assignments announcement section here where I welcome you to class. And then I also have a library tutorial set up there for you as well that was provided by Kelly Janicek. This is information we're going to cover with her on September 12th. So it's just kind of background information. You don't have to do anything with it now, but it's just background information for our session on the 12th. Link there for the syllabus. And then the modules, I've broken the class up according to week. And so here is week 1, and then you'll see the slides, program introduction, program mission. And then to complete your introductory post, if you haven't done that yet, just click on introduction here. That'll then take you to the discussion board, and this is where you can then post your introductory post. Then you'll see we have week number 2 for next week. Lecture slides on American government. Here's where we get the Articles of Confederation, the Constitution, and the Federalist Papers. This link will show you all the Federalist Papers, all 85 of them. I've then given you specific links for the 3 we're going to focus on, 10, 39, and 51. And if you have some time crunch going on next week, you really have to prioritize which Federalist Papers to look at. It's 10 and 39. Those are the 2 we're really going to focus on, much more so than 51. Module number 3 here, you have then your Canvas essay. And so for your first Canvas essay, just click on that, and that's where you will respond. Just click reply, and that's how you then submit your responses in the Canvas essay. And you kind of get the idea for each of our different weeks. Initial skills self-assessment, when you want to complete that, just click on that, and that will take you to the Dropbox. Here is a copy of the initial skills self-assessment, and then you'll just, once you have it done, you just click upload, you upload it directly there, and that is the initial skills self-assessment Dropbox. So again, everything has its own Dropbox, it has its own submission area. And then you can just see moving on through here, again, draft advancement to candidacy, that's where you would submit that. I then have the draft advancement to candidacy form that we looked at in class tonight. That is linked on there for you. If for some reason you are in one of the other MPA programs, so whenever you applied to the MPA program, you selected one of 3 different options. Vast majority of people select the general MPA. If you're in the general MPA program, this is your draft advancement to candidacy form. Some folks may have selected the option in urban affairs. And if so, there's a different draft advancement form, and that's located right here. Some may be in the public works option. We usually only have maybe 1 or 2 people at a time in that. If you happen to be in the public works option, that would be your draft advancement form. But regardless of what option you're in, everyone will use this bottom Dropbox to submit your advancement form. Week 5, your Canvas essay number 3. Week 4, Canvas essay number 4. You'll see as we go on down all the information. In week number 7, when we are dealing with managing human and fiscal resources, I provide you a lot of different examples here. That's just supplemental information that you can look at to help prepare you for our discussion. I've given you things such as the federal general schedule to show you all the different position classifications at the federal level of government, some different performance evaluation systems here, different examples of budgets, and we'll talk about all those when we talk about managing fiscal and human resources in that given week. Canvas essay number 5 is then also listed there as your Dropbox. Obviously, you don't see the midterm assessment or the final assessment here. I have not made those available yet. So whenever I make those available, then you'll see the link will pop up there to the Dropbox for the midterm assessment, and then 2 weeks before our final, the Dropbox for the final assessment. So that's kind of our Canvas site. Again, it's kind of bare bones. It provides you all the information, all the links that you need to successfully complete all the assignments in the course. I do see we are at 5:22, so it's probably a good time to take a brief break. And what I'd like to do is take maybe about a 10-minute break. And then when you come on back from the break, I want to share with you some of the information from the orientation and kind of answer any of the questions you may have about general program requirements, and then show you what it means to be a NASPA accredited program, and talked about some of the universal competencies that you will receive as a graduate of the MPA program. So we'll do that after our break. So it's 5:23. Let's say take 10 minutes. I'll give you 12. I'll say come back at 5:35, and then at 5:35 we'll get into this programmatic information. Hopefully be able to wrap all that up by about 6:15 and get you out of here a little bit early tonight. So come on back at 5:33 and 5:35, and we will get back into it. All righty? Okay. Have a good 12-minute break. See you in a few minutes. All right, well, welcome back. And we are back from our break. So let's go ahead, and I'm not going to keep you here all night, but I do want to go over some of the information that you got at your orientation, just to kind of reiterate some of the more important information, and to then afford you the opportunity. If you have any questions or need any clarifications, you can always ask those as we go through this. So let's start out with some of the basic information about the program. Again, this is information you may have gotten at the orientation. I'm sure Dr. Butts talked to you about the importance of NASPA accreditation. NASPA is a network of schools, I always get it wrong, network of Schools of Public Policy, Administration, and Affairs. They changed their name a few years ago, and now it's not nearly as intuitive as it used to be, but it goes by the acronym of NASPA. NASPA accredits graduate programs in public affairs. So Masters of Public Administration programs, Masters of Public Policy programs, Masters of Public Affairs programs across the country. There are about 170 or so graduate public affairs programs that have NASPA accreditation, and we are obviously one of them. The way in which NASPA accredits programs is it provides a 7-year accreditation. Our program has been continuously accredited, I believe, since 1987 or 1988, a few years after NASPA started accrediting programs, and we have been continuously accredited ever since then. This past year, we just went through our most recent reaccreditation process, and we've been reaccredited for an additional 7 years to take us through 2030. And so then 2030, we'll have to go through the process again for another 7 years. NASPA accreditation is important because for a program to get NASPA accreditation, you have to go through a very rigorous process of documenting the types of skills that you are conveying to students in the program so that everyone who graduates from a NASPA accredited MPA program has the same, what we call universal required competencies. And we'll get to what those are in just a few minutes. But we are a NASPA accredited program, and we are hopefully going to stay a NASPA accredited program from now on. NASPA accreditation is not a given, though. Again, it's a very rigorous process you have to go through, and there are more non-accredited NPA programs in the country than accredited NPA programs. We have 6 full-time nucleus faculty members, and I've listed them on the screen there. We did have 7, but Dr. Bill Moore retired as of last spring, and so now we're back down to 6. As you know, Dr. Butts is the department chair. He's been department chair for the past 2 years, I think, year and a half, 2 years. Dr. Tina Zhao is taking over as our graduate advisor. I run the DL MPA program currently, and we have Dr. Frank Baber, Dr. Ed Martin, and Dr. Melissa Matthews. Of the 6 of us, 3 of us have PhDs in political science. 2 have PhDs in public administration. That's Dr. Martin and Dr. Zhao. And then Dr. Matthews has a PhD in organizational behavior. So we're very much a interdisciplinary type of faculty. In addition to our 6 full-time core nucleus faculty members, we then have about 20 or 21 adjunct faculty members. Adjunct faculty members typically teach 1 or 2 courses per semester. Those adjunct faculty members have a wealth of experience working in public administration. We have former city managers, we have former town managers, we have budget directors, finance directors, HR directors, people who have started and run their own nonprofit organizations. And so we're very lucky to have a really nice cadre of those adjunct faculty members as well. In terms of your program requirements, we are a 39-unit program. Our core courses include this one, public budgeting, HR, org theory, policy issue analysis, and research methods. Now, that research methods, that 696 course, is still called research methods, but we teach it now more as program evaluation. For many years, we taught it as classic social science research methods, as a lot of MPA programs do. But what we discovered is that those classic social science research methods did not have direct applicability to the types of work we were doing in the public sector. So what we did is we transformed that research methods more into a program evaluation class. And in 696, we talk about how you use those classic social science research methods and put them in the service of evaluating public programs. So it's much more program evaluation than classic social science research. And then your other core course is PPA 697 Directed Research. And as you learned at the orientation, that is a 6-unit requirement, which means you will take 2 sections of 697, 2 3-unit sections of 697 for a total of 6 units for 697. So of your 39 units required for the degree, 24 of those units are required core courses. Then you'll round out your 39 units with 15 units of electives. Again, most people take electives within our department. They take PPA courses. As we had said earlier, if you want to take something outside the program, then you would have to get that approved by either our grad advisor, Dr. Zhao, or our department chair, Dr. Butt. Let me move this up a little bit. Those 5 elective courses need to be listed then on your advancement to candidacy form. And we talked to you about that and showed you where you would list those elective courses on your draft form. If you have completed graduate public administration courses at another regionally accredited university, you may be able to transfer up to 9 credit hours from that other university into the Long Beach MPA program. If you do have credits that you want to transfer in, again, you'll have to talk to Dr. Zhao or Dr. Butts and see whether or not those courses are allowable for transfer. But you can usually transfer in up to 9 credit hours from another regionally accredited university program. Now, as I said also earlier, we have 3 different options. The first option, the general MPA option, that's what most people are in. We then also have an option in urban affairs and an option in public works. I've included the links there for the option in urban affairs and option in public works from the catalog if you want to go and see what those entail. For the most part, what it means is if you're in the option in urban affairs, you have 1 additional core course. You have to take PPA 610 Seminar in Urban Affairs. So you have an additional 3 units of required courses. In the option in public works, you'll again have an additional required course, PPA 554, which is the infrastructure course. That will be in addition to your normal core courses. So for those options, you have 27 units of required courses and only 12 units of electives. We also then have some certificate programs. We have 3 certificate programs, probably soon to be 2, because the public sector financial management certificate is probably going to become obsolete in the very near future because of lack of student demand. But the ones that will still hang around, certainly the employee-employer relations certificate, that's a pretty well-enrolled certificate. We usually have on average anywhere between 30 and 35 people who are enrolled in that program. A certificate program is an add-on to your general MPA degree. And so you can get a certificate if you take the proper classes. And so if you want to get a certificate in employee-employer relations, for example, you would have to take as one of your courses the PPA 575 employee-employer relations course. And then you are also limited in terms of the types of electives you have to take. You would have to take PPA 570 negotiating dynamics, I believe PPA 581 government community relations. And so you'll have prescribed elective courses you have to take in order to complete that certificate. But it is possible for you to add on a certificate within the 39 units required for the MPA degree. So it will not require you additional units in order to complete a certificate. If you are interested in the certificates, again, I've listed here in the slides the links to the catalog. You can follow those links and it'll show you exactly which courses you would need to take in order to qualify for those certificates. If you are interested in a certificate, I would recommend you talk to Dr. Zhao about the different certificates, and then she can help you plan out your academic schedule to make sure you are covering the right courses you need for those certificates. And also, if you're going to do a certificate, then whenever you advance the candidacy, in addition to your normal advancement form, then there are also certificate advancement forms that you would also have to file as well. But yeah, if you're interested in any certificates, you can talk to Dr. Zhao and she will walk you through the process. So in order to successfully graduate from the program, you not only have to complete 39 units, 24 units of required courses, and 15 units of electives, but then you also need to submit this thing called a student learning portfolio. And the student learning portfolio is something that we created back in 2007, and it was created to be in lieu of a comprehensive examination. When I first came to Long Beach, the program was using comprehensive examinations, and it was a mess, to put it mildly. We had a situation where the comprehensive exams were not comprehensive. You would have students would come in on a Saturday morning, and they would randomly get 2 out of 5 core areas and answer questions on 2 of those 5 core areas. That's not comprehensive. You're only answering questions on 40% of the skills in the program. Also, we had a situation where some people just don't perform very well in those types of exam situations. So we had people who were doing really well in the program, who got A's in all their courses, were performing exceptionally well. They would come in on Saturday morning, they would have test anxiety, and they would fail their comprehensive exam. That was a problem. And so what we decided to do is replace the comprehensive exam with more of this student learning portfolio type of approach, combined with case studies, which I'll talk about in a second. But the student learning portfolio, this will be the last thing you put together in 697. So once you've completed all of your core courses, you will then register for 6 units of PPA 697 directed research. In 697, what you will be doing is you will be completing 5 case studies, 1 case study in each of the 5 core content areas of the program. So there's a budgeting case study, a human resource management case study, an organization theory case study, a policy analysis case study, and a research method / program evaluation case study. So in 697, you will complete those 5 case studies. Then after those 5 case studies are completed, you will then complete what's called the final skills self-assessment. The final skills self-assessment is a redo of this initial skills self-assessment that you are doing here in 500. So it's just redoing the initial skills self-assessment at the end of your program. So they're kind of bookend self-assessments to your time in the program. So you do the 5 case studies, you'll then complete the final skills self-assessment. And then the final thing you'll do in 697 is to submit this thing called a student learning portfolio. The student learning portfolio serves several different purposes. One purpose of the portfolio is it's a record of your things you've done throughout the program. So it's a record you can keep of assignments that you've completed throughout the program. It kind of serves as a professional journal for your time in the program. It also serves as a nice visual assessment tool because it allows you, as well as faculty, to go back and assess the types of work you've done throughout your time in the program to assess your acquisition of the competencies and skills that you are supposed to acquire in a NASPA accredited MPA program. And walking away with a student learning portfolio can also be very helpful in terms of employment and promotion. It's one thing to go into an interview and say, I know how to analyze a budget. It's another thing to then say, and here's the budget analysis that I did in my MPA program by showing them your student learning portfolio. Or to say, I can do a policy analysis versus here's the policy analysis in my student learning portfolio. So it usually is a very good visual tool that can be used to show the skills you've acquired during your time in the program. We have truncated the requirements of the student learning portfolio to try and make it easier for both students as well as faculty to assemble. So there are 3 main parts to your student learning portfolio. Part number 1 will consist of your initial skills self-assessment you are doing here in this class, and then that final skills self-assessment that you will do in PPA 697 directed research. All you have to do for part 1 of the portfolio is include the initial and the final skills self-assessments as you submitted them in those courses. That's it. That's part 1. Part 2 will consist of what we call our pre- and post-instructional assignments. So in every one of your required courses, with the exception of this course and 697. So in public budgeting, in HR, in org theory, in policy, and in research methods, in those 5 courses, you should have what's called a pre and a post-instructional assignment. And those assignments will be designated by your instructor in the syllabus for that course. The pre-instructional assignment is an assignment that you will do at the beginning of the semester typically within the first 3 weeks of the semester beginning. Then you'll do a post-instructional assignment, usually due at the end of the semester. The pre and the post-instructional assignments are supposed to be somewhat similar in nature, and what they will do is they will kind of serve as bookends in each core course to show how well you're able to apply the skills that you have learned in that course. So let me give you an example. Whenever I teach the budgeting course, which hopefully will be more infrequent than it has been in the past, but whenever I teach budgeting, the pre-instructional assignment I use in my budgeting course is that students acquire a city budget, and then there are 8 questions that they answer about that city budget. And they do that at the beginning of the budgeting class using no information whatsoever except what they currently know about public budgets. Then at the end of the semester, they redo that assignment. So for that same city budget, they re-answer those 8 questions again using all the information they've acquired in the class, using lecture notes, using textbook material, using my feedback, everything they've gotten in the course. They can use all that material to then re-answer those 8 questions. So we can compare the pre-instructional answers to the post-instructional answers, and it's a really good assessment of the types of skills that you have acquired within that public budgeting course. So that's the idea behind these pre and these post-instructional assignments. So those 5 core courses, 555, 577, 660, 670, and 696, will all have a pre and a post-instructional assignment. Those pre and post-instructional assignments then go into part 2 of the student learning portfolio. And they go into part 2 of the student learning portfolio as you submitted them for the class. So you don't have to make revisions to them. You don't have to make changes to them. You just submit them in the same form that you submitted them when they were originally assigned in those courses. So it's important as you are building your student learning portfolio to hold on to these assignments. So you need to hold on to your initial skills self-assessment from this class because you'll need that for part 1. You'll need to hold on to these pre and post instructional assignments from those 5 core courses because you'll need them then for part 2. There are no approval forms required, no extra step of approval. You just put them in as you had submitted them in the course, and those then become part of part 2 of your portfolio. The third and final part of your portfolio will be the 5 case studies that you completed in 697. Your budgeting, HR, org theory, policy, and research methods case studies then go into part 3 of your portfolio. And that is it. That's what the student learning portfolio is. And so it's something that you are building throughout your entire time in the program. It's not something you have to then necessarily create once you are finishing up 697. It's something you'll have all these things already completed by the time it comes to turn in your student learning portfolio. The student learning portfolio then is submitted electronically utilizing OneDrive. And everyone has a link to OneDrive. You've got what's called a chiclet to OneDrive. Whenever you sign into your single sign-on page, you've got all these little chiclets in there. That's, you've got a Canvas chiclet, you've got your email chiclet. There is a OneDrive chiclet there as well. If you click on OneDrive chiclet, it'll take you into OneDrive, and then you can electronically upload your student learning portfolio into OneDrive, and then you can share that portfolio with your 697 instructor. And that's how we then do the submission process for the portfolios. We no longer turn them in paper copies because the room across from my office used to be the holding bay for all the portfolios. And so we'd have all these 3-ring binders coming in, and we were just swimming in 3-ring binders. And so now we do it all electronically using that OneDrive feature. When I was chair, I produced a video walking students step by step through how you put together and submit your portfolio. And I believe that Dr. Butts is making that available on the new organization Canvas site. So when it comes time for you to submit your portfolio near the end of your program, you'll have that step-by-step video to show you exactly how to do it. Again, the idea behind the portfolio is that it's a good assessment tool so that you can look at the material you've created in your time in the program and assess your acquisition of skills. And then your 697 instructor can go back and look at it as well and assess your acquisition. Now, the student learning portfolio, you're not going to get a grade on that portfolio. As long as you turn in all 3 sections, it will be accepted and your portfolio requirement will be approved. So you don't get regraded on anything with the student learning portfolio. It's just merely an assessment tool for both you as well as your 697 instructor. When I was chair, what I would do is I would take a random sample of portfolios at the end of every semester, go back and look at the initial and final skills self-assessments and kind of see how those ordinal scores change between the initial and the final skills self-assessment as part of our assessment system. I don't know if Dr. Butts is still planning on doing that, but it was all part of that assessment of student learning outcomes. Your portfolio, again, is much more straightforward and much easier to do than what it used to be. Again, you'll submit it through OneDrive, and that OneDrive is will be provided to you on your chiclet on your SSO. There are no approval forms that are required for it, and portfolios must be submitted if you're graduating in the fall. Must be submitted by December 1st. If you're graduating in the spring, must be submitted by May the 1st. Those are the requirements for the student learning portfolio. Some other important policies that you should be aware of that you may have been introduced to at the orientation. When it comes to advancing to candidacy, all students must advance to candidacy at least 1 semester before the semester that you are graduating. So if you're planning on graduating in spring of 2025, you're going to have to advance to candidacy no later than fall of 2024. It is good advice to advance early in your academic career. So once you have completed 500, you will have your draft advancement form already reviewed by me so that whenever you are eligible to advance after completing 6 units, you are ready to go ahead and advance. And I would certainly recommend as soon as you finish 6 units, go ahead and submit your advancement to candidacy form for filing. When you actually do advance to candidacy, you'll submit your form electronically to Dr. Butts and Dr. Zhao. So you'll send it through email as an attachment to Dr. Butts and Dr. Zhao. They will then approve it, and then that requirement will then be checked off on your graduation requirements by enrollment services. Another important policy is the 7-year rule. Here at Long Beach, there is a 7-year rule whereby you need to complete your degree within 7 years of matriculating at the university. So you need to complete your degree within 7 years of entering the university. That usually is not a problem for most folks, but for some people, life intervenes and then it takes them a little bit longer to finish their degree. Courses will expire. And so after 10 years, your courses will expire and they will then have to be retaken. If you have to leave the program and then come back, we can revalidate any courses that are less than 10 years old. The department will do that automatically. However, if a course is more than 10 years old, then we are not able to revalidate it, and that course will then have to be retaken. Now, hopefully that won't be an issue for anyone. Hopefully everyone will be able to finish up their degree in pretty short order. Most people finish in 2 to 4 years, sometimes even shorter than that. But just do be mindful that courses will expire after 10 years. Also be mindful of the requirement for continuous enrollment. From the time you enter the university, you must be continuously enrolled in every fall and every spring semester until you graduate. If for some reason you are not enrolled in a fall or a spring semester, the university considers that a break in enrollment. And in a break in enrollment means that you would then have to reapply to the university as well as reapply to the program to be readmitted. If for some reason you are not able to take courses in a fall or a spring semester, you can go onto the enrollment services website and you can complete a educational leave form. It's all done electronically. The university will grant you an educational leave at least 2 times, and you don't have to have any really compelling documentation. But if you submit that educational leave, it kind of stops the clock from ticking, and so you'll be able to take a semester off if you need to. Now, you're only required to be continually enrolled in fall and spring. Summer and winter, you're not required to enroll in summer and winter. Summer and winter are completely optional. they will not affect your enrollment status if you don't enroll in those semesters. But you need to be continuously enrolled in fall and spring. If you're not able to, you'll need to do an education leave form. You need to remain in good academic standing with the university, which means a cumulative grade point average of 3.0. So if you get a C in a course, you need to balance it with an A in another course. Students who fall below a cumulative average of 3.0 will be placed upon academic probation and will then be given 2 semesters to remedy their GPA deficiency before disqualification. Now, the university currently, as part of its strategic plan, is trying to provide additional avenues for students before they get to academic disqualification. So they're trying to keep as many students as possible from being academically disqualified. But the best way to avoid being academically disqualified is just maintain a 3.0 cumulative GPA and you'll be in good shape, which most people do. Vast majority, right? 98, 99% of people do that. Grade appeals. If for some reason you feel that a grade you receive from an instructor is arbitrary, capricious, and or prejudicial, you'll be able to file what's called a grade appeal. The grade appeal goes primarily through the department chair, through Dr. Butts. And there is a 2-step process for grade appeals. The first step of a grade appeal, if necessary, and hopefully no one will ever need to use this, we very rarely get grade appeals. I think that we may have gotten 1 grade appeal in the past 3 or 4 years, so it's very rarely needed. But if for some reason you need a grade appeal, the first step is an informal process. That informal process, you contact the instructor and you and the instructor try and work out an agreement over this grade disparity. If you're unable to come to an agreement informally with your instructor, then you move to the formal stage. And the formal stage, you would then submit a grade appeal with supporting documentation to the department chair, Dr. Butts, and then Dr. Butts would begin the formal grade appeal process. You have 40 days within the beginning of the semester after the grade was issued. So if the grade was issued in the fall of 2023, you should have your grade appeal filed within 40 days of the beginning of spring 2024. Yeah. But again, we have very few grade appeals. It's something that's relatively rare. And the burden of proof is always placed upon the student in a grade appeal. So in the grade appeal process, the university assumes that the instructor, the grade the instructor submitted was the correct grade. And so the student would have to show that the grade was either arbitrary, capricious, or prejudicial. As I said before, you have to complete all your core courses before enrolling in 697. So 697 is the last core course that you take, which makes sense because you're doing those 5 cases. So they have to have those 5 core courses done before you're able to successfully complete those cases. So again, just a real quick overview of some of the important policies of the MPA program to just kind of reiterate some of the things that I know Dr. Butts talked about during the orientation. Are there any questions at this point programmatically? Any questions about program requirements or any clarifications needed on anything regarding the program? All right. If not, then let me go ahead and share out one more set of slides with you, and then we'll make this the last thing that we do tonight. And I promise I'll get you out early, and I will get you out early. And what I'd like to do is just spend a couple minutes talking about the mission of the MPA program, what we are all about, and some of the values that we base our decisions upon. And again, this all goes back to being a NASPA accredited program. NASPA requires that all MPA programs have a well-articulated, clear mission, and that that mission is predicated upon the public service values that that program places an emphasis upon. I've taken the program through this last NASPA accreditation was kind of Dr. Butts' responsibility as department chair. Prior to that, the previous 2 accreditations, I was department chair and took us through the accreditation process. I also served as an accreditation commissioner for NASPA for 3 years. And so I know how important these things are to NASPA and for maintaining accreditation. So every time you go through the accreditation process, you have to engage in a strategic planning process like most of you do in your organizations. And part of that process is to help flesh out the mission of the program. And the mission is basically what we are, how we see ourselves as an MPA program. And this is the current mission of the Long Beach MPA program. The mission of the MPA program, the Graduate Center for Public Policy Administration, is to educate and graduate a diverse student population with the professional competencies necessary for leadership, policy, and management roles in the public service and in community-based and nonprofit organizations, both within the Los Angeles metropolitan area and the nation. Through the promotion of excellence in professional public service, research, and education, the center is an active partner with the public and nonprofit agencies within its service area. This mission is how we see ourselves as an MPA program. And this mission then is predicated upon the types of things that we value as a program. And so we have identified 7 public service values that are important to us as a program. Our first public service value is enhancing diversity in the faculty and student populations. This is what NASPA looks at in what they call their standard 3, that we need to have diversity both in our faculty as well as in our student population. We are fortunate here at Long Beach to have one of the most diverse student populations of any MPA program in the country. Where we have struggled historically is matching that diversity in terms of our faculty composition. Now, our last 2 full-time faculty hires have been diversity hires. We are hopefully going to be hiring a full-time lecturer in the very near future that will also then be categorized as a diversity hire. And we are making progress toward making the composition of our faculty more closely represent the diversity of our student population. That's probably our number 1 value and our number 1 goal that we are working toward. Second value is to embrace diversity in our teaching. So embracing diversity within the classroom, embracing diverse opinions and diverse backgrounds in our classroom instruction. Number 3, promoting the public interest. And this is what we're in public administration for to begin with, is to try and serve and promote the public interest. To engage in ethical behavior. NASPA provides programs a couple of different options for how they can include ethics in their curriculum. One way is to have a standalone required ethics course. Another approach is to sprinkle ethics throughout all of your core curriculum. We have chosen the latter, and so we sprinkle ethics throughout all of our core courses. You'll get your first exposure to ethics in a couple of weeks here in this class. We talk about ethics and accountability. We'll spend a week and a half talking about ethics and accountability. You'll then revisit ethical issues when you get to your human resource management class. You'll do it again in organization theory, do it again in policy, you'll do it again in research methods, and you'll also do it in a variety of your elective courses as well. We've chosen that approach because if we were to create a standalone core course in ethics, that would add an additional 3 units onto our 39-unit requirement, and that would add on additional costs to all of you. And so we think it's better to reduce those costs and just provide it throughout our entire curriculum. Closely related to ethical behavior, we value integrity, obviously, in the program. We hold people very much accountable for their adherence to academic integrity. We also value social justice, and a lot of our faculty members work in the community to promote social justice throughout the entire community. We promote social justice in our program, try and promote social justice in our instruction as well. And obviously, as a NASPA accredited program, we need to promote professional competence to make sure that when people complete their studies in the MPA program, they have achieved the competencies that are required of national accreditation. And speaking of those competencies, here are the 5 universal required competencies that NASPA requires for all nationally accredited graduate public affairs programs. The first universal competency is to lead and manage in the public interest. The second is to participate in and contribute to the policy process. Third, to analyze, synthesize, think critically, solve problems, and make evidence-informed decisions in a complex and dynamic environment. Four, to articulate, apply, and advance a public service perspective. And number five, to communicate and interact productively and in culturally responsive ways with a diverse and changing workforce and society at large. What we have done is we have created a curriculum that emphasizes the acquisition of these 5 universal required competencies. So, for example, the competency to lead and manage in the public interest. That's a competency that you will receive in courses such as public budgeting and finance. You'll receive that in human resource management. You'll receive that in organization theory. To participate in and contribute to the policy process. You'll get a little bit of that here in this course, but you get most of that in your 670 policy analysis course. Analyze, synthesize, think critically, solve problems. That third competency, you'll get a big dose of that in 696 research methods. You'll get some of that in 670. You also get a lot of that in 555 public budgeting. To articulate, apply, and advance a public service perspective. We will spend a lot of time in this class doing exactly that, talking about what it means to have a public service perspective and talking about the primary differences between administration and management in a public organization versus administrative and management in a private sector organization. Again, in your 660 organization theory class, you'll also revisit that topic as well and talk about the specific requirements for effectively managing public versus private sector organizations. And then to communicate and interact productively and in culturally responsive ways with diverse and changing workforce and society at large. We have communication types of assignments in this program. So for instance, whenever I teach organization theory, there is a presentation requirement where you need to do a presentation of an analysis of your organization. We also have requirements when I teach intergovernmental relations. We also have discussion leader assignments where you have to facilitate discussions among members of the class on an article that we are reading. So we have a variety of different mechanisms within our program to help people acquire and then to also measure the acquisition of written communication skills as well as oral communication skills. So essentially, our entire core curriculum is predicated upon these 5 universal required competencies. So whenever you complete your MPA program, you are expected as a graduate of a NASPA accredited program to be able to demonstrate these 5 universal competencies. I mentioned those here tonight as we conclude our course because you're going to see these appear in future courses and in future course syllabi. And so it's important you know what these universal competencies are now as you are entering the program, because you are going to encounter them your entire time throughout your next 39 units in the program. And it's 6:14. I promise you I'll try and get you out of here at 6:15. So it's not too bad. We almost did it. We actually did it. We have a minute left. So I just want to kind of introduce this information about the program to you to kind of reinforce what you covered in your orientation session with Dr. Butts. Are there any questions at all about any of this material or any questions at all about the course or course requirements before we call it an evening for tonight? You all good? I hope it didn't scare you away. I hope you're going to stay in the class. I hope you enjoy the class. Again, it's a really good basis for moving forward in the program. And so a lot of the things we cover in this class will prepare you very well then to move on and complete the MPA program. So if there are any questions that do emerge between now and next week, feel free to shoot me an email. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. Next week, we'll get into our substantive information and we'll start covering the foundational aspects of American government. So please, if you can, make sure to take a look at the Articles of Confederation, at the Constitution, as well as at least 2 of those Federalist Papers, number 10 and number 39. And we'll spend all of next week then talking about those foundations of American government and what they mean for modern public administration. Sound good? All right. Very nice meeting you all. Look forward to working with everyone over the next few weeks. And again, any questions, feel free to reach out. I'll have this recording up on our Canvas site no later than tomorrow morning. And there's a question by Heidi in terms of an ID. Kathy Allen is probably the best person to ask that question to. So Kathy.Allen at csulb.edu. She's really good at that. My ID, I'm still using the same ID that I got 23 years ago. So it looks absolutely nothing like me whatsoever. And so I haven't gotten an ID in 23 years. But I think, as Jocelyn says, second floor of the bookstore. Yeah. And if you have any problems with it, just ask Kathy and she can certainly walk you through the process. All right. Okay. Thanks, everyone. And I look forward to talking to you again next Tuesday. So have a great week and take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Powell.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.